Good morning. How are you guys doing today? Sweet. Who here likes to travel? Anybody? Anybody? Shout out one of your favorite places you've been. All right, I'm hearing. All right, I'm hearing. Oh, yep, Metairie. I heard Paris. I heard Aruba. I heard a bunch of different cool places. I'm sure you guys have traveled to so many fun places I can think about, and I love to travel. I don't know if you haven't, met me more than if you haven't been around, you probably would notice, but I do like to travel. My family likes to travel. Every year we go on a vacation to a different state, and I was thinking about one in particular. A few years ago, we set our destination, we set our sights on Yellowstone, so we knew where we were going. So then we had to start thinking about all the plans that we were gonna, where we're gonna stay, what we're gonna do. We started making our plans. It is a family vacation, so we started thinking about all the pieces that we needed to do to travel together, to stuff for the kids to do, have fun with, things that they're going to enjoy, because this was our group vacation. It wasn't just for me, it was for all of us, right? So we were thinking about all the things that we wanted to do along the way and when we got there and things like that. And then, when we were going to go, we realized a few days before that there was Hurricane Ida barreling down on the city, and so we had to make a quick decision. Do we take the chance of not having a flight on Sunday afternoon, or do we move it up? And kind of rash decision, but we moved it up a couple days and were able to fly out before Ida. Added a few extra days on our journey in Colorado, visited some friends and some people that I had been close to in the faith, and just was a very good blessing that I wasn't expecting. But along the journey, obviously our journey didn't go as planned, but we made the best of it, and we really had a very joyful journey along the way. And the reason I was even thinking about that, because along travels, obviously I got to go hang out with these guys. Did anybody have fun on our trip? Yeah, and obviously we had a destination that we set, right? We were going to Fort Worth, which, I don't know, has anybody ever set their destination to Fort Worth before? Oh, we got one. All right, perfect, because it's not generally on my, on my radar, but we set our destination. Did y'all have fun along the way? Yeah. Would you have rather go by yourself? No, right? It was an amazing trip that we did together, and we obviously had some fun along the journey both ways. What was y'all's favorite part on the journey? All right, the stockyards. Thanks, Miss Kate. The maze at the stockyards. We got some tips for our Halloween maze. Took some pictures of their stockyard maze. Yeah, the Waffle House. That was yeah, JFK's memorial. So they all had their different things that they enjoyed most of the way. But again, Miss Kate came up with that plan, and again, I was not prepared, but we did it. It was a fun journey, and I think that's part of it. And the reason why I bring that up, and I want y'all to think about some of your fun journeys, is because as I was reading through Psalm 84, I know I've always thought about certain verses in that, which we'll get to, but I realized that, I was thinking about our life is a journey, and I do think Psalm 84 gives us some travel tips for our journey. So we're going to look at that. So first with that is that Psalm 84 is a pilgrimage journey. So if you don't know what they mean by a pilgrimage, a few times a year, Israelites were headed to Jerusalem. Most of them didn't live in this big city of Jerusalem, but they would head there. Does anybody know why they went to Jerusalem? To worship. What was in Jerusalem? Yep, the temple, tabernacle, like whatever they were set up, the presence of the Lord, they were, depending on the time, obviously. But yes, that's where they were going to worship God. So they were thinking about his temple in Jerusalem. And along the way, though, they would travel in large groups. They would travel to it. We have a few examples of this in the Bible. We know we saw Jesus was going to Jerusalem. We at least saw that he was leaving Jerusalem because his family left him. It was a big enough group where his family didn't even realize he wasn't there, right? So they were traveling in these big groups, and along the way, they would sing songs, they would worship along the way, because why? Because they're headed to the presence of God, and they're excited about that. They're going somewhere. They set their destination, right, on the presence of God, and along the way, they're singing songs, and this is one of those songs that they could sing along the way. And there's a bunch of other ones, like Songs of Asaph, and if you read through Psalms, you'll see that some of them geared towards we're headed to Jerusalem. We're going to sing along the way. We're going to enjoy this journey. They did not have the newest iPhone to stick in front of their kid, along the way. So they were able to, they focused on Jesus, right? They were focused on God, at the time, of course, but they were focused on their destination, where they were going, and they had fun along the way. And so I was thinking about our life, right? Our life as a journey. We are headed to an eternal destination, every one of us. Unless you believe we go into nothing after we die, we are headed to an eternal destination. So I was thinking about that we need to make sure that we're thinking about, obviously, our final destination, but along the way, what life is going to look like. And I do think that we get a few things from this chapter that I want to share with you. But I want you to think about your life right now and your destination, your journey, where you're at now, where you want to be, and where you're going, for the long haul. So, but to know where you're going to go, right? You have to know. To know where you have to know where you're going to go. It's on the screen, so you can just read it. You have to know where you're going if you want to get there, right? Like, you have to at least set that destination. So setting our sights. And so we're going to read Psalm 84, 1 through 4, because it talks about where we should be setting our sights. So, how lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord of hosts. My soul, actually, can you guys all read this for me at the same time so you don't have to hear me? But 3, 2, 1. How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord of hosts. My soul longs, yes, faints for the courts of the Lord. My heart and flesh sing for joy to the living God. Even the sparrow finds a home, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may lay her young at your altars, O Lord of hosts, my King and my God. Blessed are those who dwell in your house, ever singing your praise. Selah. So, now every one of you guys said that. I want you to think about, did you really mean it? Did you mean those things that you said? How lovely is your dwelling place. I long and I yearn for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh cry out for the living God. Like, that stuff that's really on your heart. So I want to just start with that first little part, how lovely. I just want you to close your eyes for a moment. Nothing's going to happen to you, don't worry. This isn't a youth retreat or something. So, but if you close your eyes and think about it, I want you to think about one of the most amazing places you've ever been. Maybe it's the place you named earlier. Maybe it's like an amazing meal you had. Maybe it's a memory, a thing that happened in your life, a moment, a wedding or a birth of a child or something that was just beautiful to you that you can, when you're there, you can picture it. When you close your eyes, you can picture that moment. You can almost feel being there. You can smell it. You can taste it maybe. You just think about those moments and how they make you feel. And I want you can open your eyes now unless you're still enjoying your moment. But how lovely, right? Like, try to explain that situation that you were just thinking about to your friend, to somebody around. Do you think that they're going to feel the same thing you feel? No, they're not going to necessarily understand it the same way, right? Like, so I think what he's saying here, I'm going to read a quote from Charles Spurgeon, I think it says it really well. In his reflection on Psalm 84 and the treasury of David, he says, he does not tell us how lovely they were because he could not. His expressions show that his feelings were inexpressible. Lovely to the memory, to the mind, to the heart, to the eye, to the whole soul. And it was something like he's thinking about this, like he can feel himself being there. And he wants to be there again, right? They're writing this. They want that feeling. They want to be where they were. And I think about that too. Like, there's times where I'm thinking about that most amazing place, and that's like, you could go back to that. You could be there. And obviously we can't relive a lot of our moments. A lot of times we try, like I can still think of this time where I went to Banh Mi Boys, which I do still crave sometimes. But I went there, and it was just, I'm thinking about this perfect experience. And then I went there like a little while later, and I had the same exact thing, and I wanted the same exact experience, and it wasn't there. And I think that's because this it just didn't. It was chewy. It was just not what I was it was not what I was expecting. But I think a lot of times we kind of set our sights on something that isn't going to, pay off the same way. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I do want you to think about how, the writer here cannot explain how beautiful it is. And that's because you have to experience him for yourself. You have to. Like, I could tell you all day long how amazing it is to be in God's presence. I could tell you all day long what God's done in my life, how Jesus has changed me and how he's given me a focus. And I think I should, right? That's God's called me to share my testimony. But it's not going to mean the same to you as it does to me when I share it. You have to experience it for yourself. You have to taste and see that the Lord is good. You have to know it, right, in your heart. You have to experience that. And I want to ask this before we get too much further, but have you experienced the presence of Jesus in your life? Do you know that you know him? Do you know that he's real? Do you really, truly have a relationship with him? Because as much as these guys wanted to be in the presence of God, as much as they were thinking about wanting to be in the presence of God, God wanted that as well, right? God wanted you in his presence. And he wanted you in his presence so much that he was so, broken by the sin that separates us from him, right? Like our sin could not get us there. So what did he do? He sent his son, Jesus Christ, to live life on earth, to live as a man, to go through the same things that we go through, but sinless, and then to take the punishment for our sins on the cross for us so that we don't have to. And when he did that, he tore the veil open so that we can now have access to God. And because of that, every single one of us can now go into the presence of God that these guys were like longing for once a year. There were 3 times a year. They were like, we're going to be there. You can do that any day. And the question firstly is, if you have never experienced that relationship with Jesus, I just want you to take this time. You don't have to think about anything else I'm going to say at the moment for the rest of the day. If you can just think about what your relationship with Jesus is and what it could be, and pray, talk to him, share that with somebody, share that with one of we have leaders and pastors available after you can talk to. You can let us know in your Connect card. We'd love to keep up with you and pray with you about that. But you have to experience him for yourself before really any of this other stuff is going to make sense. And so, I want you to think about, if you have experienced him though, are you now setting your sights on him? Are you actually putting your focus on who he is? Because if you don't, this journey's not going to go where you want it to go, right? Like, you're going to be going all these different directions, and you're going to get somewhere. Every one of us gets somewhere. The question is, are you going to get where you want to go? And so, continuing what he's talking about, I want you to think about with that is, what are you longing for? Like, I was longing for that po' boy over there that just didn't quite satisfy. And I know every one of us has had that feeling before. So I want to read Psalm 41, 1 and 2, because most of you guys have heard this one before. I probably wrote the wrong thing. Interesting. I'm going to read it. You can disregard that. I don't know what I wrote. As a deer longs for flowing streams, so I long for you, God. I thirst for God, the living God. When can I come and appear before God? And so the reason I wanted to even connect that is because this longing talks about thirsting. And has anybody ever been thirsty before? And what do you need to do when you're thirsty? Yeah, I need it. Like yesterday, it was hot. We were outside. My mom was helping me with some stuff. It was so hot, I needed water. I longed for it. I was like, every so often, I was like, I have to have this. And so every one of us knows the feeling of longing because it affects you physically. It affects your mind. Like, if you're really, truly thirsty, if you're really, truly hungry, you're not going to be able to think about much else. You're really longing for it. And this was talking about as the deer pants, as the deer longs for water, so my soul longs for God. And he's like asking, can I come before you? When can I appear before you? And that's what they were thinking about. Again, they're thinking about this, like, when can I do it? I want to do it. I can't wait. Yet we're here and we have this opportunity at all times. We are not restricted. We're oftentimes find ourselves longing for so many other things. And there's a C.S. Lewis quote, a story. Actually, I'm going to get to that in a second because I did want to read. I really, really like the notes from my ESV study Bible. Shameless plug. I got this when I became a pastor. If anybody wants a free Bible, all you got to do is commit your life to service at the church, you know. But I really liked the way that they talk about Psalm 84, 1 through 4. So, blessed are those who dwell in God's courts. The song opens by describing God's house, the central sanctuary in Jerusalem. It is lovely and delightful because it is the Lord's dwelling place. That is why the pious soul longs, yes, even faints for the courts of the Lord. This is where the worshiper actually meets the living God. No wonder his heart and his flesh sing for joy. Israelite worship was not a quiet or restrained type of thing. How could it be? If they really believed this was true, they were excited. They were praising him. You know, you think about like I think about like at Jericho as they're shouting, right? You see David dance so hard, so excited that, you know, he made a fool out of himself, right? Like there's times where they were so excited and so passionate for this. The marvel is that God's house is a welcoming place. If even the sparrow finds a home there, and the swallow too, then the humble and faithful Israelite need not fear that God will turn him away. Those who dwell in your house, these are the people with constant access to the sanctuary. At the time, it was only a few of them. Now it's everybody. They are ever singing God's praise because they can attend the service so readily. Such people are blessed, truly happy. And, you know, I'm just thinking about like how often we just we treat this kind of thing as, you know, like, and I'm talking about obviously church, but also prayer and worship, quiet time at home, sitting there opening your Bible. Like I have so much access. I have so many Bibles at home. I've got access on my phone. We've got so much worship music available. I don't always have quiet time because I have kids, but I can find it. I can make it. But it's always available. And yet we oftentimes think of it kind of like And so I was thinking about the C.S. Lewis analogy from Weight of Glory. Probably a lot of you have heard this, but there's a story, and he's basically saying like how, silly, I can't think of all the exact words, but how silly of the creature we are where we desire all these things. We desire money and power and sex and love and desire, and we desire all these things that are fleeting, but yet it's like we're like a child playing in a mud pile, making mud pies, when we can't even imagine what it would be like to have a beach vacation right down the street, basically. Like it's so available. You could have a weekend getaway at the beach, but you're just too happy and content playing with the little things in this life. And that's where we get in our longing. We get so like in love with the things of this world that we don't even realize how much more amazing God is, how much more amazing what he has in place, in plans for us, in place for us, because we oftentimes forget about it. We don't think about it. That's why it's ever praising, ever singing, joyful, wanting to be there. I think that's why they sang these songs along the way, to prepare their hearts to be in worship, right? They were like, yes, I know I'm a sinful creature and I can't stop thinking about, this place or that thing, and I need to prepare my hearts. And to do that, I'm looking at the last part of that is like, where do you live? Where does your heart live? Where do you spend your mind? I think we're going to sing it in a minute, but Psalm 27:4 says, "One thing I have asked of the Lord, that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple." One thing. He's like, if I could have one thing, that's what I want. If I could have one thing, that's who I want to be with. I want to spend my time with him. And I can, to be honest, I have 1,000 things. I have so many other things that are taking my attention, that are taking my time. And that's part of the journey. That's what we're talking about. But we have to make sure our sights are set. We have to think about where we're living every day. You know, Psalm 84:10, jump to that one, but it's better a day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather stand at the threshold of the house of my God than to live in the tents of wicked people. Another thing calls it the doorkeeper, but I'd rather just be right here, so close, as close as possible I can to you, than to be, living in, the tents of the wicked. But I think about it, mansions of the wicked. I mean, having money, having things. I mean, Tim Keller describes it as the power. He describes it as deep idols, but power, approval, comfort, control, things that want our hearts. He's like, I would rather one day with you, God, than thousands elsewhere. So you think about that most amazing place we just talked about, that most amazing food, that one that you can taste, that you wish. Like, I think about that. I want to be back there. 1,000 of those, it doesn't even compare to one day in the house of the Lord. And so as we're thinking about that, I want you to think about that where you're setting your sights, because that's going to affect your journey, right? Like, you can't get to where you want to go unless your sights are set on him. This is why I spent a little extra time on that, because you've got to make sure that your heart is for him. And if it's not, you need to ask yourself why. And we're going to have some worship time in a little while, but we're going to, I just want you to think about, like, during that time, where is your heart? Because as we're doing this, another thing that I thought about during this time, like the second tip, is traveling together. I don't think God ever wanted us to do this thing alone, right? And so Psalm 84:3 says, even a sparrow finds a home and a swallow a nest for herself where she places her young near your altars, Lord of armies, my God and my King. And so Spurgeon actually continued with his quote that we started earlier. Earth contains no sight so refreshing to us as the gathering of believers for worship. Those are sorry saints who see nothing amiable in the services of the Lord's house. We rejoice not only in our personal religious opportunities, but in the great blessing of taking our children with us to the sanctuary. The church of God is a house for us and a nest for our little ones. And so anybody who doesn't think you need the church, and most of you guys, obviously, this doesn't apply to you because you're here, but anybody who doesn't think that hasn't read their Bible. There's so many reminders of how we should live alongside one another and how we should work together in unity. Like Paul reminds us constantly how we need to continue to work together. It's not always easy, right? People are hard, but they're worth it, right? Like, I think about on our travel trip, when we travel, like, having kids on a road trip is not easier, but I do think it's better. I think it's amazing. We get a lot of good conversations. They get to have a lot of fun, but you got to bring extra things to entertain them. You got to hear, when are we there yet? Are we there yet? How many times you can hear that? I heard that even from these guys, and they're not even kids anymore. So it's like, you have to be ready for that, but it's so much more fun together. And I think that's something I wanted to share. Hebrews 10:24 and 25 says, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting them to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. And so he's reminding us, look, it's not easy to encourage one another. We have to constantly work together. Like, how many times did we see fights going on this trip? 3 or 4. I'm not going to point out anybody specific, but I have a son and daughter. My mom complains about them fighting all the time. They're in like a 20-minute drive, and they're already coming up with things to bug each other. It is not easy, brother. Like, but it's lovely. Like, if in Psalm 133 it says, "How good and lovely it is for brothers and sisters to dwell together in unity." And Dustin's coming up to sing a song in Hebrew. Maybe not. Hinei Tov. He's got it down. He was doing a little dance and everything. And so, but it's a happy thing because it is lovely. It is good. It's hard. but it's lovely, it's good, it's worth it, right? I do think that's something that we have to constantly remind ourselves, that being with one another is hard, but it's worth it. I think about, like, obviously my mom was helping me. My DD over here always helps me and my family, takes care of the dog, and when we're on travel, all those trips we go on, apologize now, but I thank you for all the hard work you do with taking care of the animals. And I think about, like, I got Stuart over here who's over at the house pretty regularly helping out. I've got some other friends around here. I won't name everybody, but I do appreciate a lot of people here because y'all work together with me. We work together on this journey, and I hope that everybody here can look around the room and say, look, I remember when, I was at your house helping with that, or at your house, praying with you, or having V groups together. We have a lot of people here that are in groups together every week, and if you're not in a V group, strongly encourage it, because I do think it's one of the best ways to grow in relationship with one another and actually care for each other in a deeper way, right? And so I think anybody in a V group that can agree with me, shout amen. Yeah, I do think that that's something that helps really build those deeper relationships, and it helps us to understand that other person a little bit better, so when they aggravate us, we can get through it a little easier. We know where they're coming from. We know what's going on in their life, and we can actually support one another. And I think that's huge, and I do think that God has called us to that. And so not only is it more fun to travel together, but I do think that it's a requirement. I think it's something that you should desire to be here, right? I think about our travels, like when we go on even a day trip, we got to pack the car, we got to plan, we got to make a list of all the things we need to have in there, and we're going to hit the road at a certain time. We make plans for all of our trips. How much planning do we make into coming on a Sunday morning, or making it to a V group, or having quiet time at your house? Like, a lot of times it's like, oh, if I don't have anything else to do, I'm going to go to that. A lot of times it's like, oh, if I'm going to get to quiet time eventually, but then now I'm asleep. Right? So it's like a lot of times we push off these things and we don't plan for them. And we've got to make a plan and intentionally, I'm going to be at church Sunday morning and I'm going to come prepared. Right? Like, I was talking to Dustin about this. And this is I'm very busy sometimes on a Sunday morning, but I need to prepare my heart before I get here, right? I need to be getting in the Word. I need to be praying. I need to be maybe throw on some worship music and prepare my heart so that when I come in here, it's not like I can still talk to people and say hello and connect with others, but then I'm also ready to receive from God and be in His presence more readily. And I do think that's something that was going on with the singing of the songs. That's something that every one of us needs to do with intentionality. What do I need to do? Because it's going to look different for everybody. What do I need to do to prepare my heart? Maybe you've been talking to people all week and you don't feel like talking to anybody, right? You got to maybe prepare your heart to connect with one another, right? So you got to think about those things. What do you need to do to prepare your heart for worship together, as well as for your time alone with the Lord? But I just want to thank all of you for being there for me, and I hope that you guys are continuing to be grateful for the other people in your life as well, that we're on this journey together, because I do think that we can journey with joy together. And to do that, we need to continue reading Psalm 84, 5 through 7, because I do want to remind you that we're in this journey not alone. We're in it together with one another, but even more importantly, God is with us. So blessed are those whose strength is in you, in whose heart are the highways to Zion. As they go through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of springs. The early rain also covers it with pools. They go from strength to strength. Each one appears before God in Zion. And so, one version talks about it like, obviously their hearts are set on pilgrimage, right? Their hearts are set on that road to Zion. And so they're thinking about where they're going. But then they're passing through the valleys. They're passing through difficult times. We don't know what the Valley of Baca was at this time, but we do assume that since they make that a source of spring water, it was probably a dry and arid area. even the autumn rain will cover it with blessing. Like they're saying, you know what? I'm going to be on this journey, and your journey's never meant to be easy. Does anybody here have a very easy life the whole time? Anybody can say, yeah. So, I mean, we all have joys. We all have things that we hold on to, but every one of us is going through things, and every one of us has going to go through things, and I promise you, I hate to tell you, but you're going to go through more things, right? Like this is not an easy life because this is not the destination, right? Like the destination is where there's no more tears, no more sorrow, no more pain. The destination is where the lion and the lamb lie down together. The destination is where we get to be in the presence of God for eternity, right? And so the time here is not meant to be easy. But it also, when things are hard, where do we often go, right? We oftentimes have to go look for help when things are hard. And that's something that I'm going to read the last couple verses in 11 and 12. But he says, "For the Lord God is your sun and shield. The Lord bestows favor and honor. No good thing does he withhold from those who walk uprightly. O Lord of hosts, blessed is the one who trusts in you." And so the key here is that God is with us, and we need to engage with him along the journey because we need to realize that we're not in this journey alone. You are not on this journey alone. And there might be times where you feel like that, but you're not. And we have to put our trust in him. That's how we get blessed, right? When we put our trust in God, when we put it in who he is, because he's the one that knows the destination. He's the one that can lead us to where we need to go. And so you need to think in your hearts, am I really trusting God in this moment? When I'm in this valley, when I'm walking through this difficult time, when there's things that are not working out, when every one of us has different versions of that, but every one of us questions that. But where are you now putting your trust? Are you putting your trust in the things of this world that are never going to satisfy? Are you spending your time and your money and your efforts and your heart on the things that just are never going to be enough? Or are you putting your heart and your time and your money and your life into who God is and who he's called you to be? And are you trusting him to handle your situations? Like, is the first thing that you go to when something's bad, is the first one that you go to is prayer? Like, that's a good question of where your heart is, right? Like, if somebody's sick, is the first place you go to the medicine cabinet or to pray over them? If somebody's, going through a very rough patch, either with money or with, maybe some emotional things or relationship things, is the first place that you go to someone else or something else, or do you go to prayer? And I do think that if our first place isn't prayer, isn't worship of God, and isn't thanking him for all of that we have, then I do think that we need to question where our heart is. What are we longing for? Where are our sights set? Because to really, truly live an incredible journey that God has for you, you've got to set your sights on him. You've got to be together with one another. We're traveling this together. And you really need to journey with the joy of knowing that God is with us. That there's nothing, he'll never leave you. He's your sun to give you warmth and light. He's your shield to protect you from the things that are coming on around you. And he will be with you the whole way. So as we're doing this, I want you to think about your journey. I urge you to think about where you're at and where you're going and what the Lord is speaking to you through Psalm 84. And during this response time, as our music arts team is going to lead us in worship, I urge you to really, truly dig in. It's a couple songs, but this is times where you can really, truly practice what we're talking about here. What do you long for? What do you want? Worship, worship with joy and excitement. Like, we're talking about singing praise, shouting praise. Like, this is something where if you really truly believe what the Bible says, it should be an exciting thing. It should be something that you just want to worship God for. And I want you to think about these questions specifically that I'm going to put on the screen, because I think all of us are in different spots. If you could pick one of these questions that fits where you're at right now, I just want to encourage you to pray through that question. But have you really truly experienced Jesus in your life? Because again, if you haven't, that's the first step. Praying, asking him to come into your life and to give your life to him as Lord. And then, where does your heart long for? Does your heart long for the house of God? Like, do you want to be at church? Do you want to be in the presence of God in your room? Do you want to do that? Because if you don't, you need to ask yourself, what's keeping me from longing? Like, what do I want more than God, and why do I want that? Like, what is that satisfying? Maybe one of those deep idols we talked about from Keller, but, is it because I'm longing for power or approval, comfort, control, those things that we idolize above God, that we don't go after him because we're going after those? And then, maybe you are in the right place with that, but are you trusting God along this journey? Like, that's what you want. That you want to be with him, but are you really trusting him? And what do you need to do to put something in his hands? Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a money thing, maybe it's a health thing. What do you need to put in his hands and go and worship? Because as we go, we're about to start worshiping in here, and you can respond to the gospel and respond to his word. What do you need to put in his hands and trust him with? So thank you guys, and I'm going to be praying for y'all, and I'm going to come worship alongside you, because that's why we're here. So I encourage you as I pray. Then I guess Mark's going to take over, or Dustin's taking over, I think, first, wherever he is. All right. And so, Lord, I just thank you so much for allowing me to be here, but more importantly, for allowing us to have your word so readily available. Lord, I thank you that I was able to read 10 translations of this, chapter, because it's right there. It's so easily accessible. I thank you so much that we're here in this church, in this building, with one another, and that you've made it so easily and accessible for us that we don't have to wait till our pilgrimage. We don't have to wait till a feast. We don't have to wait till the Day of Atonement, that we can be in your presence right here, right now. And I thank you for that. I thank you for tearing that veil so that we can have readily access with you and in your spirit, Lord. And I just ask you to help us to desire that, to desire your presence, to desire who you are, to want to be with you, because you are good and you are amazing and you have such amazing promises for us. And I thank you that you were with us through this whole journey. So please help us to trust in you and to really lay our lives down before you, knowing that you know what's ahead, and that we don't have to worry. We don't have to freak out about the things that are happening here and now, that we have to put them in your hands and let you guide us through this journey. Lord, you are so good, so amazing, and I just thank you for who you are. So please bless us during this time, and let us worship you with joy. Let us worship you for who you are, and give you all glory, all honor, and all praise. In Jesus' name.